Hi folks, welcome to Thursday's Coffee with John. We are looking at the question of the Antichrist. We're in 1 John chapter 2. If you're new here, and there are a few people who are new, easiest way to get these, somebody asked about how do you get them, just subscribe, click the subscribe button. But we met yesterday, we looked at verse 18, and we know it's the last hour because there's the Antichrist and so on. And then verse 19, which is one of the most, I think, misused verses in the Bible. They went out from us because they did not really belong to us. For if they had belonged to us, they would have remained with us. But their going showed that none of them belonged to us. It's always very unpleasant when someone leaves a church in a bad way. And the temptation is, as a leader, to use something like this verse and say, well, they went out from us. But you have to be really careful with that, because that's not what this verse is about. This is about Antichrist. So people may leave your church because they don't like you. They may leave your church because they've got a lot of doubts and fears. They may find another church that they want to go to. To start saying, well, they went out from us because they didn't belong to us in the first place, that kind of reinforces your sense of comfort and identity, but it doesn't. That's not what this verse is talking about. What this verse is saying is ultimately antichrists who often arise from within the church. That's the point. Somebody actually wrote me saying, "Oh, don't you recognize the Pope as the Antichrist?" Well, no, I don't. Not the Antichrist. We'll come on to that. But I do think that the papal office at times can be anti-Christian. I think bishops can be anti-Christian. I think people like me can be anti-Christian. I think there are some popes who have been antichrist. But as for the Antichrist, the papal office itself being antichrist, no. And we'll see why that is when we move on to, let's say, verse 23. But it is the case that a significant number of the sects and cults have arisen out of Christianity, and in many cases have arisen out of Orthodox or evangelical Christianity. Now, I think that what John is teaching us here is that these people oppose the truth. They can't coexist with biblical teaching, with good biblical, strong biblical teaching, and their behavior confirms the heresy of their own beliefs. I think sometimes you get people who are like that. I remember one young man who was absolutely convinced that God had called him to come to our church, to go to the Christian Union in our city. And, he had this new teaching that was, he was going to lead God's people in this way. And I remember having to go and see him one time when he got a girl pregnant because he was an all-night prayer meeting at her house, just him and her. And when I challenged him on it, he said, no, it was the Holy Spirit who had told him to do this. And in fact, she was pregnant by the Spirit. I mean, absolute blasphemy and heresy. I think Jackman says that once the central truth of the faiths are lost, or when they're denied, the appetite for real Christian fellowship is lost. And so therefore it is true that whilst it's not good to say about everybody who leaves your church, well, they went out from us because they didn't belong to us, there are people who will leave because they do not like the Bible teaching. They're uncomfortable with it. It doesn't fit their politics. It doesn't fit their worldview. I have experienced the sorrow of that happening many times when people like the church, they like the singing, they may even like me personally for a while. That often changes. But what they don't like is when Bible teaching is applied, and eventually, because they don't believe it, they leave it. So I think that's what this verse is about. They didn't really belong to us, says John. If they had, they would have remained, but their going showed that none of them belonged to us. So God bless you, and hopefully see you again tomorrow when we continue to look at this whole section on the Antichrist. Bye.